Hello, my name is Harzing and I'm a professor, research mentor and staff development lead at Middlesex University, London. Today I will be talking about how to support early and mid-career academics with collaborative and inclusive cultures. My presentation focuses on research cultures as that's where most of my experience in the last 30 years lies, but much of what I discuss today can be applied equally to other areas of academia. Now here's the argument in a nutshell. Starting with the core, I will discuss why people are simply everything in academia, why collaborative and inclusive cultures and communities are essential, and why we need to focus on early and mid-career academics. I will then discuss three challenges: mimicry versus distinctiveness, grand strategy versus granularity, and how to ensure sustainability. We will then finish up on a practical note, talking about what kind of leadership is needed to support early and mid-career academics. So the first part, what is the core? People, communities, a focus on early and mid-career academics. Now the first point I want to make is that people are really everything. Now, of course, you would expect someone who's done most of her research in international HRM to say this, but I truly do believe this. Even more so than in any other organization, it's people, and especially academics, who make or break the place in universities. And I see university leadership as creating the right climate to allow others to excel. And this isn't simply a humane argument, it's also a business argument, because nothing destroys value as quickly as a disgruntled employee, and departure of a few senior role models might easily lead to a vicious cycle of turnover. But on the positive side, nothing can reinvigorate an organization like a few intrinsically motivated individuals. Now, to give you an example about invigorating cultures, here is something I initiated this year. With spirits being quite low in the second pandemic winter, I decided to commit to making 2022 the year of positive academia. This absolutely doesn't mean that I don't recognize that there are serious problems we're facing in academia. It simply means that I'm committed to showing that there are positive sides too. So in the Christmas holidays, I started to write LinkedIn recommendations for my colleagues, mentees, co-authors and other people I admire. I'm currently at around 50 and I'm hoping to write many more. So from the 1st of January onwards, I started to share these on social media with the hashtag Positive Academia. And in addition, I reshare articles and contributions by myself and others that focus on this theme. Now, two other colleagues have voluntarily joined me in this initiative. Our new HR assistant posting weekly about Middlesex staff members, and an hourly paid lecturer and PhD student posting on her activities with students. I think grassroots activities like this can be very effective, and we're already seeing others starting to support us. Now, the second point I wanted to make is that we need to build collaborative and inclusive academic cultures. Traditionally, academia has focused very much on competition, celebrating the individual, hero, genius scientist. But as one of the recent Nobel Prize winners has emphasized, it might be better to invest in team builders than in solo star scientists. So working collaboratively is what is needed within universities in research, as most important research problems these days require an interdisciplinary approach, but also in teaching, and not just through team teaching, but also by involving students in pedagogical innovations. It's also needed externally in engagement with industry and society, and the key here is to move away from academia's early focus on knowledge transfer, which presumes a rather unidirectional movement of knowledge from academics to the outside world, to engagement, which involves external stakeholders from the start of the research process. So cultures need to be collaborative, but they also need to be inclusive. When I started in academia about 30 years ago, academia was very homogeneous demographically. Most senior academics were male. In the Netherlands, I could almost count the number of female professors in my field on one hand. And although in most countries the proportion of female professors is still far too low, gender parity has been achieved at junior levels in most countries. And in terms of national backgrounds, 30 years ago, again, most academics had been born in the country they worked in, so very homogeneous, but this is no longer the case, least of all in business schools. At Middlesex University, for instance, less than 20% of our academics are from a white Anglo background, and 3/4 of those are over 60 years old. So here are some of the key barriers that female and international academics are facing, and that came up in an internal study that I conducted at Tilburg University, but all of these are well established in the literature too. I won't discuss any of them in detail here, but I'm more than happy to talk further about them in our plenary discussion. Now, my third point is that in our leadership we really need to focus on early and mid-career academics. It may sound a bit trite, but they really are the future. They also have more of a stake in the future. And their attitudes fits today's world better. Most young academics I meet are incredibly passionate about doing research with real societal significance. And not having experienced as many setbacks and rejections, they still have their youthful enthusiasm. On average, junior scholars are also more likely to have the skill set that suits today's academic world. They're more likely to be eager to engage with social media and open science, and are less fixated on standard career paths. So then, what's the role of senior academics in all of this? Well, I generally believe that senior scholars should focus on giving back. And some are naturally suited to be, for instance, public intellectuals or get heavily involved in policy making or academic service. But we need many to take on the role of supporting junior academics, especially as their employment conditions are often so much more precarious than ours were. And in doing so, we engage in a delicate balancing act. We smooth their career paths through wisdom and helping them build connections. But ultimately, we need to let them make their own mistakes too. Most of all, I think senior scholars really need to take responsibility. I see too many of my senior colleagues constantly complaining about the state of academia. But this complaining often takes the form of publications in top journals or authored books and simply furthers their own career. It rarely seems to be followed by action that could actually improve our day-to-day working lives. And this quote comes from a reading that I asked you to read for this session, but I see this played out again and again. The image on this slide is a postcard that I created for a session we ran in the SIGNA Academic Women's Network on co-creating academic well-being. And the blog post on this session is the other reading I asked you to read for today.